And to have him go out right now it just sucks. What can go wrong will go wrong for the Dallas Cowboys. And this is another example of that with Ceedee going down with this ankle injury that'll keep him out.
Ceedee Lamb is out for the count after a new brutal collision left him with a severe injury. In this make or break season for the Cowboys, this injury just might be the end of his career before he's even reached his prime. But is there any hope he or the Cowboys can turn this around? Let's figure it out. Dallas's golden boy gone. On September 21st, 2025, during what should have been a routine Week 3 matchup against the Chicago Bears, Ceedee Lamb, the Cowboys' $136 million superstar wide receiver, suffered a devastating high ankle sprain that has sent shockwaves through the NFL landscape and left Dallas facing their most dire offensive crisis in years. The injury occurred during a controversial gadget play where Dallas coaching staff made the fateful decision to line up their most valuable offensive weapon as a running back. In a move that would later be scrutinized and criticized by fans and analysts alike, Lamb took a handoff from quarterback Dak Prescott in the first quarter. What followed was a nightmare scenario that no Cowboys fan could have anticipated. Bears linebacker Noah Sewell, pursuing the play with typical NFL intensity, made contact with Lamb in a way that would forever alter the trajectory of Dallas's 2025 season. The collision itself wasn't necessarily malicious. It was football, pure and simple. But the physics of the tackle created a perfect storm of destructive forces. Lamb's left ankle rolled severely under the weight and momentum of Sewell's tackle, creating the exact type of rotational and twisting forces that medical experts describe as the most dangerous for ankle stability. The immediate aftermath painted a picture that Cowboys fans will struggle to forget. Lamb, who had built a reputation throughout his career as one of the toughest and most resilient players in the league, attempted to continue playing, a testament to both his competitive spirit and the adrenaline that courses through every NFL player's veins during game action. However, the severity of the injury became apparent almost immediately. After just one play, the reality of the situation set in. Lamb limped off the field and did not re-enter the game, leaving Cowboys fans watching in stunned silence as their offensive centerpiece disappeared into the medical tent. The immediate diagnostic work on the sidelines provided little comfort for those hoping for good news, while initial reports attempted to downplay the severity, describing it simply as an ankle sprain. The visual evidence suggested something far more serious. Medical professionals who witnessed the play immediately recognized the telltale signs of what would later be confirmed as a high ankle sprain, also known in medical circles as a syndesmotic sprain.
That Ceedee Lamb got hurt. So now either you traded your best player right before the season and then your new best player got hurt, or you traded your second best player and then your best player got hurt. You put them in whatever order you want.
The gravity of the situation became crystal clear on September 22nd when MRI results confirmed the worst fears, a grade 2 high ankle sprain that would sideline the Cowboys' most dynamic offensive weapon for a minimum of 3 to 4 weeks. This wasn't just any ordinary ankle injury that players could tape up and play through with gritted teeth. High ankle sprains represent one of the most insidious and challenging injuries in professional football, targeting the crucial syndesmotic ligaments that connect the tibia and fibula bones above the ankle joint. Dr. Jesse Morse, a respected NFL injury specialist, provided a sobering analysis of Lamb's condition, explaining how the trauma directly affects the tissue between the tibia and fibula, hindering the speed and sudden movements that make Lamb a constant threat. The implications of this medical assessment cannot be overstated. For a receiver whose entire game is built around explosive acceleration, precise route running, and the ability to create separation from defensive backs, any compromise to these fundamental abilities represents a potentially career-altering setback. The injury's severity becomes even more concerning when examined through the lens of historical NFL data. High ankle sprains sideline players for an average of 4.1 weeks, but the truly troubling statistic is that 20 to 30% of these injuries extend beyond the 6-week mark due to complications such as re-injury or incomplete healing. For wide receivers specifically, the impact is magnified exponentially because their success depends entirely on the type of explosive movements that high ankle sprains directly compromise. The physical mechanics of what happened to Lamb paint a picture of the worst-case scenario for this type of injury. Physical therapist Jeff Muller described the incident as involving a high level of torque, with initial concerns even extending to the possibility of a fibula fracture, a fear that was thankfully ruled out through imaging studies. However, the rotational forces involved in the injury were severe enough that medical experts immediately flagged it as a potentially season-defining setback.
He ain't playing this week. I don't give a damn what he says. Okay, he ain't playing next week either. it's going to be a little while before Ceedee Lamb is back there on the football field.
Eyewitness accounts from team facilities painted a sobering picture of the recovery process ahead. Reports indicated that Lamb was seen leaving the team facility on a one-legged scooter with his injured ankle secured in a protective boot. Visual confirmation that this injury was far more serious than anyone initially hoped. Cowboys owner Jerry Jones, in his characteristic fashion, initially attempted to project optimism, describing early signs as promising and suggesting that the injury might not be as severe as initially feared. However, medical reality quickly overtook wishful thinking. The confirmation of a grade 2 syndesmotic sprain meant that the Cowboys would be facing a minimum of 3 to 4 weeks without their offensive cornerstone, with the very real possibility that the absence could extend even longer if complications arose during the healing process. The timing of this injury could not have been worse for a Cowboys team that was already facing significant challenges in the 2025 season. At 1-2 through the first 3 weeks, Dallas was desperately searching for consistency and momentum. Lamb had been off to a spectacular start, recording 16 catches for 222 yards through 3 games, including an explosive 11-catch, 170-yard performance against New Orleans that reminded everyone why he commanded such a massive contract extension. The loss of Lamb's production represents more than just statistical damage. It fundamentally alters the entire structure and philosophy of the Cowboys' offensive approach. His absence evaporates more than 30% of Dallas's target share overnight, forcing a redistribution of responsibilities that dilutes the efficiency and explosiveness that had made the Cowboys' passing attack one of the most feared in the NFL. The controversial nature of the play call that led to the injury has only added salt to the wound for Cowboys fans and analysts alike. The decision to use Lamb as a running back in a gadget play has been heavily criticized, with many questioning whether the potential reward justified the risk of exposing their most valuable offensive player to the type of contact that ultimately led to his injury. This strategic decision will undoubtedly be dissected and debated throughout Lamb's absence, serving as a painful reminder of how quickly fortunes can change in the NFL. The devastating impact on Cowboys' season. The ripple effects of Ceedee Lamb's high ankle sprain extend far beyond the immediate, statistical void left by his absence. They represent a seismic shift that threatens to derail what many consider to be a make-or-break season for the Dallas Cowboys. With Lamb officially ruled out for at least the next several weeks, including the critical Week 4 primetime showdown against the Green Bay Packers on September 29th, Dallas finds itself staring into an offensive abyss that exposes fundamental flaws in roster construction and strategic planning that have plagued the franchise for years. The immediate offensive disruption became painfully apparent in the aftermath of Lamb's exit against Chicago. After Lamb limped off the field, the Cowboys managed a paltry 186 passing yards in the second half, a staggering 40% decrease from their season average through the first 2 weeks. This dramatic drop-off wasn't merely coincidental. It represented the complete collapse of an offensive system that had been specifically designed around Lamb's unique skill set and versatility. The vacuum created by Lamb's absence cannot be overstated. Throughout his career, and particularly during his record-setting 2023 campaign, where he hauled in 135 receptions for 1,749 yards, Lamb had established himself as the ultimate security blanket for quarterback Dak Prescott. His role in Prescott's progression reads was so fundamental that opposing defenses were forced to account for him on virtually every play, creating opportunities not just for himself, but for every other skill position player on the Cowboys roster. Now, with Lamb sidelined, the Cowboys face the harsh reality of a dramatically altered offensive ecosystem. The burden of replacing his production falls primarily on the shoulders of George Pickens, the enigmatic wide receiver acquired from Pittsburgh in the offseason. While Pickens possesses undeniable talent, evidenced by his 5-catch, 68-yard, 1-touchdown performance against the Bears after Lamb's exit, the transition from complimentary player to primary target represents a massive leap that many experts question his ability to make.
What if I told you that for these 3 to 4 weeks that Ceedee's out, that this defense is going to hold it down?
All right, man, I'm out.
Yeah, I'm with Jesse on that.
I'm out, dog.
The statistical projections for Pickens' expanded role paint a concerning picture of what Cowboys fans can expect. Analysts project that he'll see his target share increase to approximately 15 targets per week, but his inconsistency issues, including the dropped passes that led to interceptions during his time in Pittsburgh, raise serious questions about his ability to handle the pressure of being a true WR1. In the NFL's most scrutinized offensive system, the depth chart behind Pickens reveals the true scope of Dallas's roster construction problems. Jalen Tolbert, who slides into the slot position, and Kavontae Turpin, who transitions from primarily special teams duties to a more prominent offensive role, represent stopgap solutions rather than legitimate answers to the Cowboys' receiving core crisis. While both players showed flashes during their limited opportunities, Tolbert managed 3 catches for 45 yards against Chicago. Neither possesses the combination of size, speed, and route running precision that made Lamb such a dominant force. The impact extends beyond just the receiving core into every aspect of the Cowboys' offensive philosophy. Jake Ferguson, the team's tight end, exploded for 14 targets and 86 yards in the aftermath of Lamb's injury, suddenly becoming Prescott's primary safety valve. However, as analysts have pointed out, this development exposes Ferguson's ceiling. While he may be a reliable possession receiver, he lacks the big play ability and red zone dominance that Lamb brought to the offense. The running game, already struggling through the first 3 weeks with an average of just 3.8 yards per carry, faces even greater challenges without Lamb's presence to prevent opposing defenses from stacking the box. The concurrent injury to rookie guard Tyler Booker, who is expected to miss 4-6 weeks with his own ankle issue, compounds this problem by weakening the interior offensive line protection that running backs rely upon for successful ground attacks. The timing of these injuries creates a perfect storm of adversity for a Cowboys team that was already facing questions about their ability to compete at the highest level. Playoff odds have plummeted from a respectable 55% to somewhere between 35 to 40% according to various analytical models, reflecting the harsh mathematical reality of trying to succeed in the ultra-competitive NFC without elite offensive firepower. The upcoming schedule presents a gauntlet of challenges that will test every aspect of the Cowboys' depth and resilience. The Week 4 primetime matchup against Green Bay looms as a potential disaster scenario. The Packers' defense, which ranks 7th in fewest passing yards allowed, is perfectly positioned to exploit Dallas's suddenly vulnerable receiving core. What was originally expected to be a competitive divisional-like atmosphere could quickly turn into a lopsided affair if the Cowboys' offensive limitations are exposed on national television. Beyond the Packers, the Cowboys face a challenging stretch that includes road games against teams that will certainly adjust their defensive schemes to account for Dallas's diminished offensive capabilities. The Jets' secondary, ranked among the top 10 in the league, presents particular challenges for a receiving core that suddenly lacks a true number 1 threat, capable of demanding consistent double-team coverage. The broader organizational implications of this injury extend into the front office and coaching staff's strategic decision-making. The lack of adequate depth at the wide receiver position has been a persistent criticism of Jerry Jones's roster construction philosophy, and Lamb's injury has exposed these deficiencies in the most brutal fashion possible. Trade rumors have already begun circulating, with speculation mounting about potential moves for veteran receivers, though the Cowboys' salary cap constraints limit their flexibility in the trade market.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say, and also for the concept of trust, right? Like Dak trusts Ceedee with unwavering, trust. I don't know if he trusts it. If he trusts George Pickens like that, yeah, I don't know if he trusts Tolbert like that.
The defensive side of the ball, already struggling mightily through the first 3 weeks of the season, faces additional pressure to compensate for the offensive shortcomings. With the defense allowing 31 points to the Bears and similar struggles in previous weeks, the margin for error has essentially disappeared. The defense will need to not just improve, but transform into an elite unit if the Cowboys hope to remain competitive during Lamb's absence. The psychological impact of losing their offensive centerpiece cannot be understated either. Lamb had emerged as more than just a statistical producer. He was the emotional leader of an offense that relied heavily on his ability to make contested catches in crucial situations. His absence removes a security blanket that Prescott had grown to depend upon, potentially affecting the quarterback's decision-making and confidence in pressure situations. The ramifications extend into the coaching staff's game planning and play-calling philosophy as well. Offensive coordinator Brian Schottenheimer faces the challenge of completely restructuring an offensive system that had been built around Lamb's versatility and ability to line up in multiple positions. The gadget plays and creative formations that took advantage of Lamb's skills will need to be replaced with more conventional approaches that may prove less effective against sophisticated NFL defenses. Long-term career implications. While the immediate focus surrounding Ceedee Lamb's high ankle sprain centers on its impact on the Cowboys' 2025 season, the long-term implications for one of the NFL's most electrifying young receivers present an equally compelling and concerning narrative. At just 26 years old and in the prime of what should be a Hall of Fame caliber career, Lamb faces a recovery process that could fundamentally alter not only his playing style, but also his future earning potential and legacy in professional football. The medical reality of high ankle sprains presents a sobering picture pressure for any skill position player, but the implications become particularly acute for a receiver whose entire value proposition is built upon explosive acceleration, precise cutting ability, and the type of sudden directional changes that define elite route running. The syndesmotic ligaments that were damaged in Lamb's injury serve as crucial stabilizers for the type of movements that have made him one of the most dangerous receivers in the NFL. Historical data on high ankle sprains reveals a troubling pattern that should concern Cowboys fans and fantasy football enthusiasts alike. Studies show that players returning from these injuries typically experience a 22% reduction in snap counts and a 25.3% decrease in receptions during their first season back. For a player of Lamb's caliber, who averaged 135 receptions and 1,749 yards in his record-setting 2023 campaign, even these statistical decreases could represent hundreds of yards and dozens of catches, production that could be the difference between all-pro recognition and merely above-average performance. The most concerning aspect of Lamb's specific injury involves the high level of rotational force that caused the initial damage. Medical experts have noted that the torque involved in the play was significant enough to initially raise concerns about potential fibula fractures, and this level of trauma to the ankle joint creates lasting vulnerabilities that could plague Lamb throughout the remainder of his career. Dr. Jesse Morse's assessment of the injury provides insight into the potential performance impacts that Lamb may face upon his return. His analysis suggests that the injury could compromise Lamb's burst speed by 10 to 15% for several months following his return to action, potentially transforming him from an elite deep threat into a more possession-style receiver who relies on technique rather than pure athleticism. The rehabilitation process itself presents another layer of complexity that could influence Lamb's long-term trajectory. The syndesmotic ligaments heal more slowly than traditional ankle ligaments, requiring a careful balance between aggressive treatment to maintain strength and conditioning, and conservative approaches to prevent re-injury. The 15 to 25% re-injury rate associated with high ankle sprains creates a psychological burden that many players struggle to overcome, sometimes leading to tentative play that diminishes their overall effectiveness.
If there's one person, and we've seen a host of Cowboys get hurt over the years, and we've heard a host of Cowboys who are super reluctant or unwilling to rehab properly. Ceedee doesn't fall under that umbrella. He is one of the guys who will show up for treatment, who will do treatment at the facilities, who will have treatment set up for him at home, and it'll be around-the-clock treatment for Ceedee.
However, there are reasons for cautious optimism regarding Lamb's long-term prognosis. His injury history prior to this setback has been remarkably clean, with a 95.4% availability rate through his first 5 NFL seasons. This durability record suggests a player who takes exceptional care of his body and has the physical constitution to recover from significant injuries. Additionally, his age works in his favor. At 26, he's young enough that his body should respond well to proper rehabilitation protocols. The financial implications of this injury create an interesting dynamic that could influence both Lamb's recovery approach and the Cowboys' long-term planning. His recently signed 4-year, $136 million extension provides financial security through the 2029 season, with $100 million in guaranteed money that protects him from any immediate contract concerns. However, the structure of his deal includes performance-based incentives and bonuses that could be jeopardized if his production suffers due to lingering effects from the ankle injury. The contract's guarantee structure reveals both protection and vulnerability for Lamb's long-term earning potential. While his base salaries through 2028 remain fully guaranteed regardless of injury status, performance bonuses tied to receiving yards and touchdown production could be at risk if his effectiveness diminishes. More significantly, his next contract negotiation, likely to occur around 2028 or 2029, could be dramatically affected if this injury creates a pattern of decreased productivity or increased injury risk. The broader wide receiver market context adds another layer of complexity to Lamb's situation. With elite receivers like Justin Jefferson commanding $35 million per year, any significant decline in Lamb's performance could cost him tens of millions of dollars in future earning potential. Precedent set by other receivers who have dealt with similar injuries, some successfully, others less so, will likely influence how both Lamb and the Cowboys approach his rehabilitation and return timeline. The psychological aspects of recovery from a significant ankle injury cannot be understated for a player whose confidence and aggressiveness are crucial components of his success. Lamb's entire playing style is built around his willingness to make contested catches in traffic and his ability to create separation through explosive movements. Any hesitation or tentativeness in his play, whether conscious or subconscious, could fundamentally alter his effectiveness as a receiver. Comparisons to other elite receivers who have dealt with similar injuries provide both cautionary tales and success stories. Players players like Tyreek Hill have successfully returned from high ankle sprains to maintain their elite status, while others have seen their careers derailed by the lingering effects of ankle instability. The key differentiating factors often involve the quality of rehabilitation, the player's commitment to the recovery process, and their ability to adapt their playing style if necessary. The Cowboys organization's approach to Lamb's recovery will play a crucial role in determining his long-term success. The team's medical staff and training facilities have earned recognition for their rehabilitation programs, and their conservative approach to injury management could benefit Lamb in the long run. However, the pressure to return quickly due to the team's competitive situation could create conflicts between optimal long-term health and short-term performance needs. The broader implications for Lamb's Hall of Fame candidacy and legacy also come into play. At 26, he was on a trajectory that could have seen him challenge some of the greatest receiving records in NFL history. His pace through his first 5 seasons had him positioned among the elite young receivers in league history, but significant time missed due to injury, and any reduction in peak performance could alter these projections substantially. The recovery timeline remains fluid, with initial projections suggesting a return sometime between Week 7 and Week 11. The Cowboys' medical staff faces the challenge of balancing Lamb's eagerness to return with the need to ensure complete healing of the syndesmotic ligaments. Rushing back too quickly could not only jeopardize the remainder of the 2025 season, but also create chronic instability that could plague him for years to come. The ultimate test of this injury's long-term impact may not be visible immediately upon Lamb's return. The true measure will come in his ability to maintain his elite level of play over multiple seasons, his durability in subsequent years, and whether this injury represents an isolated incident or the beginning of a concerning pattern of physical breakdown. For Cowboys fans, the hope remains that Lamb's exceptional work ethic, elite physical conditioning, and access to world-class medical care will enable him to return to his previous level of dominance. However, the harsh reality of professional football is that even the most talented players are not immune to the long-term consequences of significant injuries, and only time will reveal the true impact of this ankle sprain on one of the game's brightest stars. Thank you for watching this video. If you'd like to watch another fascinating video like this, click on one of the boxes on your screen right now.